You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Thanks for adventuring with us as we discover what incredible athletes and outdoor enthusiasts are doing all over the world. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hey friends, we have just a couple of announcements, super short this time, before we dive into the episode. Number one, Discord server. Yes, we meet on Discord, and if you want to visit with us, you want to visit with each other, you want to meet other adventure-minded people, then go to the Discord server. They change the link for it periodically, not sure why. It's probably a good thing, so you have to go to the show notes from this episode, click on it, join the Discord server, and we'll see you there. PayPal. We love PayPal. If you like what's going on with the Adventure Sports Podcast and you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee in the morning or a beer in the evening, then you know where to find us. PayPal, Adventure Sports Podcast, thank you in advance. Very, very much. What else do we have going on? I think the number one thing is, if you like an episode, share it with a friend. Share it with a friend. You know, people say you have to ask for what you want in this world, so I'm asking. I would like to do nothing but podcast for a living, or podcast and write books, or podcast and write books and do interviews. I would love to do that. Those dreams become a reality when the Adventure Sports Podcast grows. We've got a great thing going, so why not share it with others? And I appreciate it. Thank you so much in advance. Now, on with today's episode. Today I have Seth Quigg with us, who is a returning guest. He has been on the show twice, and we did a replay of one of his episodes once, so this will actually be the fourth episode on the Adventure Sports Podcast, but that's spread out over quite a few years. Anyway, you may not remember, but Seth Quigg has had a lifetime career in the outdoor industry. He worked for Knowles for a long time, and then he started working with a partner from Knowles to make their own company. They do adventure travel guiding all over the world. They do a lot of fundraising for charity as well, and it's kind of fun. Seth and I live in the same valley, even though we've not met. We're just talking about we're going to have to grab coffee soon. But anyway, Seth, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast.
Thank you, Kurt. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's really fun. I've enjoyed the conversations that we've had over the years. You're one of these people that your enthusiasm just really shines. And I also like some of that Southern hospitality that seems built into your DNA. So you were from down there, North Carolina, Asheville area. What's the story there?
Yeah, I was born and raised in North Carolina. Lived there until I was 22. So, yeah, grew up in the Raleigh area and then went to undergrad at Appalachian State. And that's where I really got, fell in love with the outdoor recreation and education process. And that was kind of the hook, one of the pivotal points.
All right. And then I gave some of your resume right there, but was it straight to Knowles after that, or what happened?
No, so I moved to Boone, North Carolina, and then kind of really fell in love with the rivers of Western North Carolina and started guiding river trips, kayaking and rafting trips. And in the summer, I'd go out to the Kern River in California and guide, me and a couple buddies. And for like 4 years, we did that while we were in college. So yeah, it started river. It was all about the rivers. And then, graduated university, went out to California for another river season, and then ended up moving to Montana, and then just kind of following the path for 20 years of where the world was going to take me. And so, yeah, I was in Montana, and then working at a university there running the AmeriCorps program, and then would go to Alaska in the summers and guide, mountain guide and sea kayak guiding. And then in 2007, I started teaching with Knowles. So that was probably, 3 or 4 years in between those two.
Wow. And then from Knowles, you ended up where you currently are.
Well, yeah. So with Knowles, I was one of the lucky instructors. I got work right off the bat and was able to work all over the world, where, a lot of Knowles folks get stuck in the Rockies or in Utah or somewhere. But I was lucky, man. I got to work at all the Knowles bases and At the same time, I started working with another company called World Challenge Expeditions out of Australia. And so as we do, as a contract employee, putting your schedule together. So I would go down to Australia and I helped run the training department down there for this company. And so we would train all of the instructors on taking these high school groups to different countries around the world. And so between World Challenge and Knowles, I put my schedule together for roughly 10 years. And then I didn't live anywhere. I didn't pay rent. I was in my 20s. Just was leading trips around the planet. Like I had a truck in Idaho and like some stuff. And then in 2014, I was like, okay, I think, I'm going to try this different lifestyle. And so I moved back to North Carolina and was teaching at a university there, teaching outdoor education, and ended up starting my own company. And so we took off. Yeah, that's provided a lot of balance over the last 10 years, being able to live somewhere and then be able to go and work in the field as well.
Well, that's really great. Yeah. So this episode is not really about guiding. It's more about adventure travel, but it's always fun when you meet somebody who somehow is like, I made it happen. I got the outdoor career and I made it work and I'm still going. And so many people, Seth, they envy that. They're like, oh man, I've got my cube farm job, or I've got this job or that job, and I would do anything to be able to have more of an adventure focused. But we all make our decisions, and it's not that there's a right way and a wrong way. But I will say it's fun to talk to someone like you. You've been all over the world forever now, and led so many trips and had so many experiences with so many amazing people, I'm sure. That's just super cool, man.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and it's been very profound, and lots of growth, lots of transformation for my guests, but also for myself, and human development and thinking about life in general. It's an adventure travel is such a catalyst to growth and learning and to becoming a better human, right?
I'm sure.
I often, we'll talk to, we live in the Gunnison Valley here, and it's full of guides and doing things. I'm like, well, why do you do it? And what's your motivation behind it? And so my own personal thought is that we have these experiences. They should lead us to becoming a better human, right? And so, some of my neighbors and other folks will be like, well, we're going to go ski in Iceland. I'm like, all right, well, why? What do you do? What's it for? For recreation, for recreation of yourself and your clients? But surely there's a greater mission involved.
Okay.
And so what we do now with our company is it's really it's a mix of education and adventure travel, right? Showing people different lives, different lifestyles around the world, and helping shift their perspective on what it means to be alive on this planet through adventure travel, right? Because it takes people out of their comfort zone and tests folks, and all of the reasons behind it. But it's an amazing platform for change if people are open for it.
It's personal change for the people that go on the trips, but it's also cultural impact in the places to which you go, right?
Very much so, yeah. I mean, we make a lot of change on the ground with local people, and within the guests and ourselves, and it's just it's an experience, right? And it has a lot of potential to be a transformational experience if facilitated the right way.
Well, for sure. And I've talked to so many guests who have done extensive travel, and they all come back to the same thing, which is people are just really good people, almost without exception. No matter where you go, you find out you have so much in common, and all of the fear-mongering and talk about how dangerous it might be, and these people are going to mug you, and you're going to get, all that kind of stuff. They're like, yeah, there are a few bad characters out there like there are here, right?
Yeah.
But people are generally just wonderful humans that just want to interact and give and enjoy a good conversation and have fun. And I don't know. And you are someone who's done enough travel to know better. So what could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about perspective, right? And your perceived risk versus actual risk. And so, for example, like I have a friend who was like, "Wow, aren't you nervous going to all of these places with potentially dangerous humans?" And my question to them is, well, we live in a country that allows guns, that allows people to be able to carry guns. No other place on the planet allows that. Surely there might be an exception. Places that we go, nobody is carrying weapons for offense or defense, right? And so it's all about perspective, and it goes back to like a bit of a spiritual philosophy of like how you perceive the world and how you perceive yourself in the world. Do you envision the world as a friendly place or a dangerous place? And if you get stuck on this idea of like, wow, it's the world's out to get me, then it's a little bit of a hindrance in your potential development, right? And so if people can, snap into a different perspective and mind frame, they start seeing the world differently.
Yes. That's good. Well, hey, you just mentioned that you're a little jet lagged because you just got back from another big trip, Nepal, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What were you doing in Nepal?
So this was a trip with our company, the Karuna Project. And so it was a 21-day trip. And so the Karuna Project's all about leveraging travel to drive positive social change. So the first 3 days of the trip are for acclimatization purposes. We go out, we support this village out north of Kathmandu. And so, in this village tourism is a brand new entity there. And so we're working with the elders of the village and the community to like talk about different solutions for sustainable tourism development. And I've been working in this community for 15 years. My first time in Nepal is 2010. And so we know a lot of the people really well. We have strong relationships. And so they want to bring more tourism. So we bring our guests there. We talk about this sustainable tourism development. And then we talk about their lifestyle as well, right? And so this village is very much the old world, right? Like they don't have technology. I mean, they're starting to have some things, but it's a lot of people, that are farmers that live simply. And so we bring our guests from the States and from the developed world there and talk about what it means to be alive and to be human. So we facilitate wisdom circles, as we call it. And so for people to answer or ask and answer questions freely about what your lives are like, right? And so
yeah, that's cool.
The villagers asking, well, how are you empowered as women in the United States? And then, we're just trading information and trading stories. And so part of that theory is, looking at a capitalistic United States in 2025 and seeing our potential pitfalls, right? And how we're becoming disconnected from humanity. And then looking at the Nepali culture and seeing how they're very much tied into it, more so than we are. And I'll use this as an example of like, a lot of our kids here have the nicest new skis and new bikes and, a lot of amenities at our fingertips, but yet a lot of them and us are struggling with mental health, right? And so our village in Nepal, people don't have any monetary assets, but they have simplicity. They have real human tasks at hand, not to say ours aren't, but they're, what is the value of going to get water for 2 hours a day with your best friend? What does that have on your overall experience in life, right? And so the idea is that we have a lot to learn from each other about how we can coexist. And so the first couple of days of the trip are all about that. And then on this specific trip, we went to the Everest region in the Khumbu, and we trekked the 3-pass route. And so we got pretty lucky, Kurt. We took the last flight from Kathmandu to Lukla.
I was going to say, you're pushing the season there, Seth.
Well, the weather's changing in the Himalaya very fast.
Really?
Like I have a good buddy in Manali who told me that the snow line is rising 1,000 meters annually. And so so what's happening in the Indian Ocean, all the weather's changing in the ocean, right? And so it's bringing typhoons faster and in different seasons than normally. So typically in October, November, December, it's dry and sunny. And so we had a typhoon come in, but we luckily got the last flight into Lukla. So we landed in Lukla and then trekked in the rain for 4 days, and the airport closed for those 4 days after. And so we didn't have any traffic behind us, which was great. And then like day 4 at Tingboche, the sun popped out, and it was bluebird for the remainder of the trip. But that rain had brought 2 feet of snow higher in the mountains. And so it was the route was very challenging for folks. We climbed this one peak, Chukungri, and that usually will take like 6 or 7 hours from the village up to the summit and back. And it took us like 9 to 10 hours, and people were just whooped,
Yeah. It's tough when the snow's deep. It's probably heavy too.
Yeah, it was heavy.
Yeah, that makes it hard too.
The sun's out, so it's melting the snow. So you have mud snow, and every step that you could take, you're sliding back a little bit and just expending more energy and getting sunburned as well, And so, yeah, it was a wonderful trip. We were supposed to go over a pass called the Kongmala that was closed by the national park because of, some people went missing up there. So we went down and around and got to base camp and ended up sending 4 people back via chopper, and then crossed two passes that were above 18,000 feet and climbed a couple more big mountains. And the group was phenomenal. We worked hard but didn't get worked, and that's how transformation occurs. From extreme adversity is something that can really help with human development. And so I think all of our groups feeling accomplished. Like I said, 9 of the groups were from the Gunnison Valley, local people in Crested Butte and Gunnison. Yeah, we're going to have a potluck in a couple weeks and kind of debrief the trip and revisit, maybe put a slideshow together. But yeah, it was really good. It was a good one.
It sounds so cool. So many things come to mind. I mean, we started with the cultural impact, and you said something about the value of a couple of people going 2 hours to get water for the day. And it took me back to Kenya, because that's what went on there too, of course, when we were in Kenya years ago. But the one thing that I noticed in Kenya, there was no technology, so what did people do? They'd light the lanterns and they'd sing songs, they'd talk to each other, they'd tell stories, they'd laugh. Your circle of wisdom was every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
Every night. And I remember one evening especially, some of the neighborhood kids, they're not on their phones, they're not playing video games, they don't have movies to watch, they don't have electricity, they don't have anything like that at all. And so what they did is they built a charcoal fire in this little can, and they put field corn around it to roast the corn. And then as darkness fell, they gathered around that fire. And one of these little kids, I don't know how, what the age of this gal was, but she started playing a drum better than anyone I know can play a drum. And she was young, but that's what they did. She started banging the drum. They started singing together. And they stood around that fire while the corn roasted and beat that drum and sang the most amazing songs. And we're talking about kids that were probably like 4 years old up through maybe 12 years old. And I just thought, okay, how do you put a price on that? How do you measure the value of that type of interaction that they have all the time?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
It's real world. It's real human connection, which I feel like we are getting away from in the U.S. and in, more of the developed global north, if you will. Real connection, real ceremony, real thoughts about rites of passages and where are we going as a species, right? And I think, with this whole technology boom, like we're at jeopardy of losing a lot of ideas and practical application of being a human being and how we connect to each other, how we connect to ourselves, how we connect to place. And being very wrapped up in our phone world or computer world. And it's a really interesting time, I used to, I've been working in Nepal for 15 years, and the development that's happening there is tremendous. Like when I first went in 2010, you would go in the tea house in the kitchen and everybody be drinking Roxy, smoking cigarettes, dancing, singing. And my former business partner was like, wow, are they really blown away that, Americans are all on their phones now? And I was like, well, everybody in Nepal is on your phone now, so it's changed dramatically the culture there as well. And, ours also, but now everybody is seeing the whole world, everybody has access to information that's going on the planet. But it's interesting. So I was just before Nepal, I was leading an expedition on the Silk Road in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. Gosh, that could be the most thought-provoking history on the planet, where the East meets West, right? And so it just reaffirms that was the beginning of globalization, right? And like how, people from Hindustan were trading with the Afghans and the Uzbeks and the Turkmen, and then the, Genghis Khan's empire came over, and it was the trading route between East and West. And so it's just, again, like a reaffirmation that we will continue to be globalized as long, and that there's ups and downs in empires and histories, and that, it's just history repeats itself,
It's funny, Seth, I used to think maybe I was born 120 years too late. I think I would have really fit in 120 years ago. But then I started looking at what was going on, the wars with the Native Americans, even the Civil War, and the technology, the disease, the illnesses that now we just kind of laugh about because we have cures, simple cures, preventative cures, And I started looking at all of that, and I thought, we forget sometimes that there's a lot of benefit that we've reaped from the industrialization and the technology and all that kind of stuff. It's easy to look at all the problems that come with it, right? And we have problems that come with it, big ones that we're going to have to overcome. But that said, so many benefits. I mean, think about what you do for a living. You couldn't have done that 100 years ago.
Not a chance.
Being able to travel the world with groups and have these cultural exchanges and amazing travel, it wouldn't have been possible.
It's true. I mean, you look at my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother all grew up on a farm in rural North Carolina, right? And their lives were very similar, right? And then now you have this generation where the world is your oyster. And of course, I have innate privileges that help me do that. But yeah, I mean, the world is globalized more than my grandmother would have ever expected. And so if we keep that trajectory going, where will our grandkids be in 100 years? Like, oh, wow, we never thought that you could be on Mars or wherever. So yeah, the trajectory is sharp. It's hot, right?
It is. SpaceX is developing Starship, and for people that don't pay attention to it, I don't blame you, but if you're interested in it, you might be interested in this. One of the ideas they have for it is not just interplanetary travel, but a way to get anywhere on Earth in 20 minutes.
I've heard that. I was talking to my neighbor. My neighbor came over yesterday, and we sat and kind of had a deep dive about that. And that's, anything is possible, right?
Yeah.
For us to think that there's limitations.
Crazy.
It's crazy. But
think about you could take a half hour and go to Europe and have lunch, and take a half hour and get back to anywhere in the U.S. and it'd be like crazy. You could have a lunch break from work in Europe from the U.S. I mean, that's actually a thing that could happen.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. Why not? It's all possible. But going back to your point about, the positives of our community. So me and my neighbor were talking yesterday, and, on this trip in Nepal, every one of the guests got sick, right?
Oh, no.
And so the question was like, wow, why aren't you getting sick, Seth? And we talked about it and talked about the microbiome, from adventure traveling for the last 6 months. You pick up different germs all over the planet, right? And it can build your immune system in your microbiome. But we were talking about, well, what do you think all the guests are getting sick? And it's because we come from such a place that's clean,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's sterile and
Sterile.
it's comfortable and it's easy living, generally speaking, compared to a lot of, countries that are still using human labor to build city walls and cities, and like they were thousands of years ago. But it's interesting to think about that when you take people to the global south and the developing world, and they just get worked.
Yeah, well, and the more you travel, probably the more inoculated you are, and the less you have to deal with it. Although I'm sure it's still something you have to watch out for. Hey friends, I want to take a minute to tell you about Campfire Ranch. My friend Sam started Campfire Ranch several years ago, and his goal, his mission, is to energize places by creating meaningful human experiences in the outdoors. At all of the Campfire Ranch locations, from their campgrounds to trailside lodges to backcountry huts, their goal is to help you stay in the place and in the way that you want so that you can spend more time getting out there and getting after it. Campfire Ranch Little Sugar is a trailside lodge located in Bella Vista, Arkansas, just north of Bentonville, the mountain bike capital of the world. The lodge features 7 private bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms and communal spaces for gathering, meeting with others, and relaxing after a long day on the trails. Little Sugar has immediate access to 160-plus miles of public trails designed for mountain biking, gravel biking, trail running, and hiking, and it also has easy access to the food, art, and music scene of downtown Bentonville. So grab some buddies and go to www.campfireranchdotco/ASP. That's not .com, it's .co/ASP, and you'll get 15% off nightly base rates at Little Sugar in Bella Vista, Arkansas. And this opportunity is valid all the way through 2026. But you know how these things go. Your weekend is going to fill up quickly, so go right now to campfireranch.co/ASP to plan your big adventure.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a story? Let's hear one from your Silk Road experience first, something that would connect us to what the experience was really like.
Yeah, so we spent 15 days in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. Uzbekistan, I think, will be one of the top 5 travel destinations for Europeans in the next couple years. Like, the infrastructure is amazing, travel's easy, the food is organic and clean, and the history is just absolutely incredible. And so we ended up crossing, after our week in Uzbekistan, we crossed the border into Turkmenistan. And so this was a different story than Uzbekistan. So Turkmenistan is primarily, geographically, it's all a desert, and they're wealthy in natural gas. And that shows in the two cities that we went to, one Mari and the other one's Ashgabat, which I'll get to that. But the infrastructure of the country is pretty poor. So we ended up taking a van from the border down south to this city of Mari. I think we went like 150 kilometers, but it took 8 hours. And the roads might be the worst roads I've ever experienced. So, like, huge ridge lines coming up in the middle of the roads.
Right.
Half asphalt, half gravel, just atrocious. And so we finally, one of the guests was like, "So we should be there, right?" And we're like, we got 3 more hours, and just like soul crushing. I'll send you some pictures of really interesting place. So we finally get to this city of Mari. And so Mari is a massive city made out of primarily marble, white marble, huge buildings, like bigger than Vegas. And there's like a small population of people. So it was very, very interesting, to say the least, there. And so the subsequent day after that, we went and visited this ancient civilization called Göbekli Tepe, which is 5,000 years old. So about the same timeline as the ancient Egyptian kingdom. And yeah, but there are no humans there, and like no UNESCO, no archaeologists, and there's just like artifacts everywhere. Pots sitting out on the walls, like bronze statues. There's a horse skeleton on the ground, like an incredible glimpse into human history. They are even pots that our local guide said had some like transformational kind of medicines in them, almost like not ayahuasca, but some other different ingredients that the shamans were using. So they found remnants of these. So anyways, we went to this place. We went to the ancient kingdom of Merv, which was once the largest city in the world until Genghis Khan sacked it. And that's 3,000 years ago.
Wow.
Wild, incredible history, man. And if you love, adventure travel, history is a kind of a part of that, and understanding where you're going and kind of perceiving differently. And so then we drive to Ashgabat, which is the capital city, and this was the most interesting place. And that's, it was like a city built for, like it could support millions and millions of people, and there were almost no humans there. Like, so we're in this huge city, with these buildings, and they have like some of the largest sites in the planet, like the largest Ferris wheel in the world is in Ashgabat. And yeah, it was kind of like an M. Night Shyamalan film, with like like a weird plot of like, no one's growing old here or something like.
Wow.
And another kind of interesting thing is that no, you're not allowed to have a car in Ashgabat unless it's white. So everything in the city is white. And
so marble again?
Huge marble buildings, all white cars. We're like 15K from the Iranian border, in between Iran and Afghanistan. And you just have this city that's like kind of haunted.
That's crazy. Do you have to wear white sunglasses too?
Well, we asked the question. We might have to do we need to be wearing white clothes? And they're like, nah, you're good.
That's crazy.
Yeah, such an interesting country, and it's highly like big, high level of security, and like they're skeptical of Westerners. And there's almost no tourism at all. I think like 4,000 tourists a year, and they're mainly from the Central Asian region. So incredible place. Like I'll probably never go back to Turkmenistan again, but wow, what an experience, right? Yeah. Very interesting. So then we went back to Uzbekistan, and then I ended up flying to Nepal after that. And that felt like, I was like, it's going to be good to be back in Kathmandu.
So you're hopscotching all over the world. I'm not going to ask if you have culture shock. I mean, you've gotten used to a lot of the cultural shifts that you see as you travel, but how do you manage it?
Great question. I don't have much culture shock these days at all. Earlier in the
summer. You've seen it before.
I've been there before. I've been, into my, but with that being said, I'm always reflecting on myself. Like I've been abroad 6 months, relatively consecutively this year in the last 6 months, and constantly reflecting on myself interpersonally, and yeah, like almost forgetting my community back home, and then like, all right, how are we show up and live here? Like what's going on back at home, So that it's almost like it's not a reverse culture shock, but it does take a little bit to like ground, regroup, and kind of re-enter into different places, But having the expectation that it's going to happen and knowing about the process, that brings the first amount of awareness, like, okay, there, you might have some issues going here or there, but at this point in the game, I'm not experiencing much culture shock because of the expectation.
Yeah, I think it's harder to come home for me personally.
Yeah.
Because when you go somewhere, you expect there'll be a difference, and maybe you've studied a little bit about the culture, and it's like, oh, there it is, I see it, this is it, this is what I came for, and then you come back home, I wasn't ready.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you're traveling, you're not going deep with folks, really. Like it takes intimate relationships, but it's more surface level connection. It can be than the deep dives of intimacy with your partner back home or your family. Things are in a different kind of a different setting, right? Where you have this expectation of this curated, different environment that you're traveling in. And then you're going to come home back to your quote unquote real life. And like, yeah, you show up differently, you know?
So which one's more real to you with all the travel you do?
I mean, they're both very much real, but they require me to show up in different ways, right? So when I'm home,
Sure.
I need to support my family, dive into intimate relationships more and show up for my community where, I mean, and on trips as well, you got to support your clients and support your team. And, but it's just a little bit of a different role also,
You just have to switch hats and know what you're doing.
That's right. And sometimes that can, especially with like enough, younger people that are traveling around the world, it helps to have someone to talk to about that. Like traveling is, you're going from different world to different world, So earlier this year, I was in sub-Saharan Africa leading a trip, and that led back to Europe and then over to Ladakh and Pakistan and then, back to Crested Butte and then to Silk Road, then to Nepal, and now we're back. So it's a very much a changing of realities, But self-care is key in everything, drinking enough water, eating enough food, resting, exercise, stress management, all of those, you got to manage yourself well.
Hey, share a story with us, if you would, about crossing one of the high passes on this trip in Nepal.
Okay. So the first pass on this trip got shut down because of too much snow. And then headed up to Gordak Shep and then crossed the Chola Pass. So typically when there's not a lot of snow, there are dirt trails, right? And you can move up those trails efficiently and effectively. But with this new snow, you have new trails. And so typically the people from one side of the pass will go break the trail up to the pass and vice versa. The people on the other side of the pass will go break the trail up on that side. And these people are usually young, fit Nepali people. And so they're going straight up, right? They're not doing these
Right.
switchbacks, right? So when we were crossing, I think it was Rinjala Pass, usually the path is kind of a long switchback that takes you, up to the pass gently. But this was not the case on this trip. These trails were like pretty straight up. You would go climb for like 100 meters and then stop, and then it would go this way, but it was very much vertical. But the whole team made it, in Nepal and in the Himalayas. The way to get there is going slow. So we said bistari jump, go slowly to go fast. And I always just try to reinforce self-care, right? Like eat enough food, drink enough water, and move slowly. Those are what's going to make us successful, right? And some people naturally grab a hold of that, and then it takes others longer. Some people get dehydrated and like to think that they're, fit enough to walk fast, and then they get humbled, right?
Right.
So that happened. Like we have, I had a bunch of like mountain people on this last trip, and one of the guys was, like, I don't wear sunscreen. And then sure enough, the first day he got like 2nd-degree burns on his nose.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, the Himalayas will humble you, and then, but not just humble you, but also show you the cultural side, which is there's so much love in Nepal, and the people are wonderful, but it's a different world for folks. It's challenging for people, but that's part of it. It's all about that's what reinforces the learning and the transformation. So we got over both passes, relatively effectively and efficiently. And then, we had a couple really long days in the mountains, which I love, which is the best,
And that's where people dig deep and learn something about themselves. That's why they come back changed. Right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. They do something that they never thought they could do. And they change their perspective.
So cool.
So good.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Corinna Project. This is your company that you started with Nicole, right?
With Nicole, yep. So Nicole was, we've been friends since 2007. She was my first big boss at Knowles when We were in our 20s, and yeah, we started dating, 3 years ago. And so I have a long list of past guests, and we had some guests come to us and say, "Hey, what's your appetite for going back to the Himalayas?" And we thought about it. And we're like, "Well, what's the most important thing?" And she's been a mountain guide for 20 plus years and an outdoor educator. She runs an outdoor ed company in California called Positive Adventures also. And so they work with the schools to teach leadership and life skills and things like that. But we were like, yeah, let's go back. Well, what's the most important thing? Like, why do we love these trips? And so we landed on connection. So facilitating connection to ourself, connection to place, connection to the local people.
Yeah.
We love, like, the local people in Nepal are just the most lovely humans on the planet. And we love that so much. Like, we just love being with them and learning about their lives and songs and, speaking Nepali and just all of it. And so that was kind of the impetus for Karuna Project. And then my last company was very much mass tourism. And right, like it was very much clients in, clients out, only cared about revenue, blah, blah, blah. And there's so much magic that lies in international adventure travel. And so
Yes.
we're like, let's not be like, this mass tourism, my last company, and let's do something that unlocks that magic. Let's tap into the connective piece of it. And so we started the Karuna Project, and within, the first couple months, we got 15 people signed up to go to Everest region. And then last year we ran a Nepal spiritual adventure. And so we did yoga, and we talked a lot about Buddhism at this camp that overlooks the whole Himalaya from Manaslu to Everest. And then we hiked in Langtang for 7 days. And then this year we ran a river expedition on the Zanskar River in Ladakh, and that's a good story. I have to tell you that. And then this last Nepal is our fourth trip. And so
Wow.
I still consult with some of the other companies I've worked with in the past. But yeah, Karuna Projects, it's great, and it's a way for people to have a more meaningful experience that's facilitated in our style, right? Which is very much an educational style and of personal development and growth, not just like a regular tour company where it's just, the guide doesn't focus on that, and they might focus on something differently. But yeah, it's good. So we're looking at we've got a whole bunch of trips on the books for next year. So, Kilimanjaro trips. I've been a river guide for 20 plus years. And so looking at running the Karnali River in West Nepal, potentially going to Northeast India and running some rivers there in the Brahmaputra, and then back to Nepal at the end of the year as well.
And you have a real philanthropic focus as well, not just experiential with the people, but you actually are trying to make a difference for inner city kids. What's that about?
Well, yeah, so we partner with nonprofits, NGOs, in every place that we work, and we support those NGOs. And so Nicole, she worked with Big City Mountaineers for many years and actually helped found the Minnesota branch of that. And so we give our guests an option to raise money for Big City Mountaineers, but then also to contribute to our local nonprofits on the ground. So in Nepal, we work with 2 nonprofits. One is called Tamang, and that is run by a lady in the village where we work. And so she teaches the local women about recycling and upcycling. So she pays them to collect plastic, and then they weave that plastic into products like toiletry bags and laptop cases. And we buy them from her, and then we're selling them in the Gunnison Valley. So we're creating a circular economy there. And then in Tanzania, we're working with an NGO called Make a Difference Now. That's all about educational programming for rural youth. And so we take our guests, we talk about the nonprofit, we do some projects, and then we go on an adventure. So it's combining an adventure with some real world humanitarian connective pieces.
I like that. Yeah, I've said it many times. I continue to say it. Adventure matters. And when I say get out there and have some fun, I believe it's transformative, even if you just do small things in your own neighborhood, in your backyard, and with your family. with your community. I mean, all those things are transformational. Your health gets transformed. It gives you something to look forward to and to plan about and to invest energy into. And so adventure is great, just isolated as its own standalone thing. But I really believe in doing adventure in a way that makes an impact on the world in a positive way, and it's not hard to do. I talk to so many people who, as soon as they start traveling, they see needs.
Wonderful.
Or as they do some big event, they realize, I'm getting actually quite a bit of attention for this. I'm getting press, and I could promote something for somebody, that's making a difference in the world. Or it's like, oh, well, I love to hike these trails. What if I hiked them with some of the middle school kids in my community that could use some time moving and getting away from their black screen and interacting as a group? I just love it how many different ways that adventure leads people to making a positive impact. And if all they ever did was just meet people who love the same sport, that'd be fantastic. But we can go and do so much more. And so I think it's really cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think at some point when you adventure enough, you start realizing that you're a piece of the team, right? I mean, you can go on adventures by yourself, but do that. I'd like to go with people and like get to know people and talk to people and have objectives together, right? And so at some point you start realizing that it's not about you per se, that it's how you're going to support everybody else. And so it's a metaphor of looking at the world, like how are we going to serve the people where we're recreating, where we're adventuring? It's not about us. What about the other people? Don't be selfish, take care of others. And then just being of service and practicing gratitude and adventure there's so much, it's such a metaphor for becoming a good person, becoming a better person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just climbing one of those high passes, if nothing else, can help you learn patience. And that's going to help you later in life. I mean, you're going to get to times when, you feel like blowing your top. You're just like, no, I've learned patience now. I can actually help this situation instead of escalating it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's super cool. So if somebody has never traveled, right? And let's say that they're medium fitness. They're like, well, I don't even know what I'm capable of, but I can do some things, What would be a great place for them to start? If they came to you and said, Seth, where should I go? What should I do? I want to experience something.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, it really depends on what they're up for, And so it involves a conversation of, some people that never left the United States that don't have any desire to leave the United States. So I would say you need some kind of desire to go somewhere else, and then why would you want to go? What's the point, But going slow, you can go anywhere if you go slow and you take good care of yourself, right? You could climb. That's how you climb big mountains. You go slow, right, and being patient with yourself. But that's like what I'm trained in is like facilitating these trips for folks and helping set people up for success, And so we have multiple trips at the end of next year. Some trips in Nepal that are like, we have a 7-day hike, which is a perfect first hike for folks in the Himalaya. There are some big days, but it's manageable. We took a group of 7 last year, and some people had never, they weren't hikers. And so we trained them up on here's how to be successful in the Himalaya. Right. And they did it, and their minds blown, changing lives.
Now they know how to do it.
And now they know how to do it. Right.
Which is pretty cool. You were talking about the Zanskar River. You said, I got to tell you about that, but we never got back to it. So before we run out of time, I want to hear that story.
Yeah, this is a good one. So I was in Europe, in London. I picked up a private group in London, and the very diverse group from all over. And we went to Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. And so we did a 5-day trek there. And then we also did this community immersion project where we worked at a neighborhood care point, as they're called, and helped. They're like built for orphans and like places that where orphans can go to receive food and things like that because of HIV is such a high. Yeah, because HIV is very prominent.
Parents have been wiped out. That's what we're talking about.
Yes. Parents have been wiped out. Yeah. Trying to be politically correct.
It's just what it is.
Yeah. So anyways, we ran this trip. I go back to Paris. I end up missing a flight. Now originally was going to fly to Dharamsala to try to meet His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And then I was going to do a 4-day motorbike trip from Dharamsala up to Leh in northern India. And so I was knackered. I missed my flight in Paris. So I was like, I rebooked a flight directly to Leh. So fly to Leh and like wake up the next day. I'm like, oh man, my back is so sore. What's going on? There's a soft bed. And I was there a week before the clients arrived. And so at the same time, I had just heard that His Holiness was in Zanskar. And I'm like, oh my God, he's here. Like, good thing I came here. And so I was emailing with his team, and they were like, if you're in Leh, you should come be blessed by the Dalai Lama on Friday. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. Okay. So I had like 4 days to go, and I'm staying in this tea house, wake up again. My back is wicked sore. I'm like, what is this? And I go out to breakfast, and it just started raining sweat. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting. And at the same time, I developed these 2 open sores, one on my hip and the other one on the inside of my leg. And I was like, oh,
this
God.
is not good, Seth.
This is not good, Kurt. And so, I spent a lot of time in sub-Saharan Africa, and I know what actual risks lie there. So I'm like, okay, I think I have like a tsetse fly or a bot fly. So, but the fever was very intermittent. Like one day I'd be wicked sick with a high temperature, and then the next day I'd be like, okay, I feel great. And so ended up chatting with my co-instructor in Swati, and he's like, mate, that looks like a tick bite. I think you have Africa tick bite fever. And so I went to meet the Dalai Lama while this is all happening, and like got blessed by him. And and then the day after that, my clients arrive, and they're from all over the world. And we have this Zanskar river trip. And so I, at the orientation meeting, I'm like, in full transparency, team, like I've got this weird fever. I think I need to evac myself to Delhi. I got to go to the tropical infectious disease ward. And so went back to the tea house, looked for flights to Delhi, no flights. And the next day I slept all day, 105 temperature. And so on the river trip, we had a 3-day drive to the put-in. So I was like, well, I'm just going to double up on these antibiotics. Luckily, doxycycline was the cure for AFTB. So I was like, I'm going to double up on these antibiotics. And if we get to the put-in, and I'm dying, I'll just ride back, And so we drive to the put-in 3 days. And luckily, I was feeling strong. I was like, okay, this medicine's working. And so we put in on this tributary of the Zanskar called the Stolt River, and it's flat, braided river. And all of our guests were from India and Europe, and they had, some of them had never been on a river trip before. But it was the first 2 days were flat, and we got to train them up. I was rowing. We had 6 paddlers, and then we dropped into the Zanskar Gorge, and it was like the highest. It was at flash flood stage. And so the guys that I boat with there, some of my guys, they were like, the most experienced boaters in the country of India. And they're like, we've never seen this river this big. And so.
Are you in rafts or drift boats or what?
We're in rafts, big rafts.
Okay, in rafts.
4 hard shell kayakers also. But they're also building a road from Leh to Padam, the capital of Zanskar. And so we're eddied out and watching bulldozers like dropping in house-sized boulders into this river. And because of that, there were 10 new Class 5 rapids on this river.
Are you serious?
It was game on. But we styled it, and we kept everybody in the boats, all the boats upright, and it was a highly adventurous expedition. And then it was absolutely incredible. And then, I was taking the doxycycline to the end, and we dropped into the Indus River, boated on the Indus River for a couple of days, and then went back to Leh. And, it was a really, really incredible highly adventurous expedition where, again, the guests left being like, damn, that was mind-blowing.
Yeah, life-changing. I can't imagine. I mean, Class 5 gets my attention. It really does. And, of course, I was a kayaker, and it's different on a kayak than in a raft, but you had kayakers with you. I mean, that's intense, dude.
Yeah, big water, big Himalayan cold whitewater, which is different than, our Class 5 here in the U.S., which is technical and more shallow usually. But yeah, it was good phenomenal river corridor, still wild, feels, I feel like in this day and age, it's harder and harder to find like wild places on Earth where you're just far away,
Right.
And this one, yeah, was a good one.
Sounds like fun. Well, you know what? We're about out of time, but I'll bet you have a story for us, something that maybe changed your life or changed the life of a client, something that was like, that stands out still in my memory. This is an example of what can happen.
Well, I mean, I think, I've taken so many different people from one place around the world to another place around the world, and foraging the connections between different humans around the planet and having those be sustainable makes me happy. It's the reason why I do what I do. I'll have friends that, like, for example, when I was in Kathmandu this last time, I had like 10 different friend groups from different parts of life. Like, I had a dear friend from Chilean Patagonia who I worked with at Knowles that was in Kathmandu, another guy from Aspen at a different time of life, another friend from Boulder, Colorado, who had his other project, other Nepali friends from the US. It was just like this incredible web of connections between humans from different parts of life, different parts of the planet. And that's really special, I think. Yeah, it just makes me happy to have such an amazing community of humans in my life and around the world.
Yeah, that's unique, Seth. Not many people can claim that.
It's true.
That's unique.
It is unique. And that's, I think, one of my superpowers, my ability to connect with people cross-culturally and my network of humans from, maybe from rickshaw drivers to billionaires. We're all human beings and we all have things in common, and bringing people together to show us similarities and differences and explore and just be open up our hearts to being vulnerable and trusting each other and trying to provide a positive experience for people on the planet. Yeah, it keeps me moving. It's good. It's magical.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, let's wrap it up there. I think that you have given us enough of a taste for what your lifestyle is like, but also for the experiences that people have with you and what the world is like, all around the globe. I think maybe it'll just whet our appetites, and maybe, Seth, people will start connecting more like you're talking about, and we'll realize we're not really so different. We can drop the ideologies. We can start getting along, embracing our fellow humans, Yeah. It's just all about the love, is what I say. It's all about the love. That's why we're here. That's what it's about.
That's exactly right. Let's use adventure sports to make humanity better. Everyone.
I thought you were going to say to make love, and I thought, well, okay.
Hey, and make love also. That's making the world better. Keep making love. Keep getting outside. Keep being good human beings.
I love it. That's all right. Well, everybody out there, make sure you find your thing, and whatever it is, get out there and have some fun.
Thanks, Kurt. You're the man.
Oh, thanks, Seth.